Wednesday. It is Gimel Adar, Tavshin Ein Gimel. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamarim, Tavshin Yud Aleph, Tavshin Yud Beis. In the Mamar Usfartem Lochem of Lag BaOmer Tavshin Yud Aleph, and we are on page Ayin Ches, at the beginning of chapter 5. We are in the middle of learning about the Birur HaMidos, the refinement of the emotional faculties of the person, which takes place during the period of Sfiras HaOmer. In the 49 days of the Sfiras HaOmer, which is 7 times 7, each midah as it is integrated with each of the others. In the preceding chapters, the Rebbe explained that the day prior to Sfiras HaOmer is the birur, the refinement of the moichin of the nefesh habahamis, the intellectual faculties of the animal soul, and that's why it was on that day that we brought the korban ha'omer, which was from grain, because grain is associated with the intellect, as the Gemara says, "Ein atinik yodea likrei abba asher teim tam dogon." An infant can only start calling Abba, his father Abba, once he tastes the taste of grain. So grain is associated with intellect. In this instance, we're talking about grain from barley, which is Meichel Behema, animal food, because we're talking about birur, the refinement of the midos of the nefesh habahamis, the animal soul.
Right, also the korban is sort of increasing chashuvas as the Omer goes. You start with Machal Behema, then you end up with
Chitim. Yeah, on Shavuos, precisely. Because you've completed the birur. It's also, just as an aside, appropriate to note that there's a minhag to learn Masechta Seita during Sfiras HaOmer. Not only because it has 49 blat, one blat corresponding to each day, but also because the other korban mincha offering that was from flour of barley was the korban of the Seita. And the reason being because he also said Maisa Behema, therefore her korban is Maisa Behema. And it's for the same reason that the Rebbe uses before, based on this, to explain the Meichel Behema dimension, the animal food dimension of the korban ha'omer. So that's the birur of the intellect. Now we come to the refinement of the midos. The Rebbe says that the refinement is in a very particular way. It's not just a general refinement of the midah, which would be signified in the morning in the sense that it wouldn't be 49 days; it would be 7 days, or let's put it this way: when we count Sfiras HaOmer, we count weeks and we count days. The week refers to the Sfira as one entity, just Chesed, for example. Second week is Gvura, without getting into the details. So there's a way to count weeks. We can say this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3. We don't do that. We count the weeks and the days, which means it's a birur proti, it's a very detailed refinement. And in the previous 2 chapters, the Rebbe explained, in chapter 4, the Rebbe explained in detail what is the idea of the integration of midos by bringing an example of midas HaChesed. I'm not going to go into all of it now to revise it, but the Rebbe explained Chesed Shebechesed, Gvura Shebechesed, Tiferet Shebechesed, until Malchus Shebechesed, both in the Nefesh Elikis and the godly soul, and correspondingly in the animal soul. Now we get to Lag BaOmer. That's where we're up to, chapter Hey. Before we start, just by way of preface, the Rebbe is explaining here that the Sfira of Lag BaOmer, the 33rd of the Omer, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Yortzeit, is Hoid Shebehoid. Hoid within Hoid. Hoid meaning submission, admittance. Hoid is also a form of beauty, but it's a simple beauty. There's Hoid v'hodar. Two expressions, like we say in Hadar Azamana, Ha'hoid ve'ha'hodar l'chai olamim. What is Hoid and what is Hadar? Hadar is a beauty which is made up, a multicolored beauty, multifaceted beauty. Hoid is a simple beauty, beauty from simplicity. Correct. In Spheris, if you want to get technical, this is going to be Negea, this is going to be relevant to what we're going to say later. Hadar is the idea of Chitzayni Keser, the external dimension of Keser. Hoid is Pnimis Keser, the internal dimension of Keser. Meaning to say that Hadar is beauty, very high level, right? But as it's already made up of other components. Whereas Hoid is in more internal dimension, it's the beauty from it itself, from within itself, as it were.
Hoid is also Gematria 15. And Emet v'Yatziv v'Nachal v'Kayam v'Yashar v'Nefesh.
Hoid is Begematria 10, is Begematria 15, yes?
Yeah, and Emet v'Yatziv
It's 15 Hoidas, right, precisely. Very good. So,
it's not from me, it's from Rabbi Moshe Shapiro.
okay. So, the idea of Hoid is simplicity. In Keser, you're talking about the most inner dimension of Keser, and even in the inner dimension of Keser, it's Pnimius Atik, to get very technical. But in a manifest way, Hoid is simplicity, sincerity, admittance, submission, right? That's the manifestation of that very high level as it comes down in the very lowest level.
Why do you bring Keser in?
You'll see later on. You'll see later on, because it's connected to Lag Bomer. What happened to Lag Bomer? Bottom line is that Hoid, as it is in Spheris, is the very end of the Spheris. In other words, when we talk about the Midos, right? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, these are all different aspects within the human being himself in the development of an emotion, for example, in the development of a state of being, a state of consciousness, within himself. Yesod, which follows Hoid, what does Yesod mean? Foundation. Yesod is basically taking the sum of the Midos and connecting them to Malchus for the purpose of transmitting it lower. That's what Yesod is.
So Hoid Shebahod is the pinnacle of refinement.
That's exactly the point. So when does basically refinement of the Nefesh HaMamis conclude? Where does it end? In Hoid. And taking it a step further, in Hoid Shebahod, as the Rebbe will explain it now, what Hoid Shebahod is. But once you hit Hoid Shebahod, you've basically got the whole picture. Now you need to connect it to Malchus for the purpose of transmitting it lower, which is the idea of Yesod. Okay? Of course, there is a bitter in Yesod as well, but it's already something that follows from before. So in other words, it's almost a foregone conclusion. Once you hit Hoid Shebahod, what follows is almost a foregone conclusion, so to speak. So when we say Hoid Shebahod is the end of the main aspects of the Midas. That's the point that it makes here. Okay? And now we will, with that in mind, and with the fact that Hoid is connected to Keser, we will be able to understand what the Rebbe says now.
Hod is nearly always connected with the Netzach. So in this case, you're not talking about Netzach.
No. Over here we're talking about Hoid Shebahod because the Rebbe is focusing on Lag Boimer. We discussed Netzach
When you talk
in
about
yesterday's
the
share.
movement to Yesod, the movement to Yesod is nearly always a connection between Hod and Netzach.
Well, Netzach and Hoid are Kava Yamin and Kava Small, the right and the left. Yesod is Kava Emtzoi. It's the central one. Netzach and Hoid, yes, are associated. As we discussed yesterday, it's like the two stones of the millstone, the upper stone and the lower stone, and they interact together. And the Rebbe spelled it out, as we learned yesterday in the Shiur, that Netzach is the idea of determination, and Hoid is the capability to continue to be determined despite all odds, even when you feel that you can't anymore. So you just submit to Hashem, and you say, look, Hashem knows what He's doing, and therefore I carry on. So it's basically allowing Netzach to carry on, even in, what's the word? Extraneous circumstances? Yeah?
Extraneous difficulties.
Correct. Particularly from the outside rather than from the inside. Okay, but anyway, let's go to Lag Boimer. Hey, chapter 5. V'hinei ikir inyan birir hamidais. Now the main idea of the refinement, birir proti hamidais, the main idea of the refinement of the detailed aspects of the emotional faculties of the soul, nishlam b'yem lag ba'omer, is concluded on the day of Lag B'omer, the 33rd of the Omer. Why? Or, where do we see this? Shehu b'chinas heid shebeheid. What is the level in Sfiris of Lag B'omer? Heid shebeheid. Shezehu haseif l'ikar hamidus, which is the end to the main components of the emotional faculties. What is the idea within this? What's Hoid? Hoid means submitting, admitting. Right? It's an idea of bittul, nullification. So what is Hoid Sheba-Hoid? It's the lowest level in this submission mode.
Isn't it the highest?
It touches the highest. But if you go Mamayla Lamata, from above to below, Hoid Sheba-Hoid is the lowest. Chesed Sheba-Hoid would be the highest. And Hoid Sheba-Hoid would be the lowest. Or Malchus Sheba-Hoid. Okay? But Hoid Sheba-Hoid represents the lowest level in Hoidah itself. In this admittance submission mode itself. What does it mean? Shemoida Shekenu. It means, in simple terms, that a person admits that this is the way it is, although he might not understand it in his seichel, in his intellect. And the Rebbe spells it out with an example. An example for this. For example, say there is a very wise man. Who is so distant and removed from the entire nation by virtue of his wisdom. In other words, he is exceptionally wise, beyond, infinitely greater than anyone else. Then you have a small chacham, a person that's wise, but not a genius, nothing exceptional. A small chacham. This small chacham, although generally he does have a relationship, a connection to intellect. He too, although he has this small chacham, has a connection to the idea of chachma of seichel. Nonetheless, to comprehend and appreciate the wonderful, the exceptional wisdom of this great chacham is beyond him. Nonetheless, since he has a connection to seichel, to intellect, although he doesn't understand the intellectual prowess, the wisdom that he might hear from this great wise man, he does though see that this is an unbelievable intellect that he's sharing. And therefore, although it is true, although it is true that it's impossible to say, we cannot say that he knows or comprehends what is being said, what is being shared. Nonetheless, he admits, although he doesn't understand, that one must be annulled. One is annulled before this great wise man. He appreciates his tremendous wisdom here, although he has no comprehension of it whatsoever. So, in what mode is he? He says, yes, I admit this is something great. Why is this? It's because he feels, rather than comprehends, that this is an unbelievable intellect. A wonderful intellect. So since he has a connection to seichel, to intellect, so he understands that he needs to submit to this great wise man, although he doesn't understand really what he's sharing. Although he doesn't know and doesn't comprehend what is being shared. This is the submission of a small chacham relative to a big chacham. Now let's take it a step further. Someone who's not a chacham at all. A very simple person who has no appreciation of intellect whatsoever. But a very simple person who has no connection to intellect at all. Concerning this individual, we cannot say, it makes no sense to say, concerning him, that he understands that he needs to submit and nullify himself to this great wise man. Why? Because he has no appreciation whatsoever what it's about. And when this person does submit to the great wise man, and when he does submit, and when he does nullify himself relative to this great chacham, before this great wise man, this itself is in a mode of submission. So it's submission of submission. There is submission that emanates, that comes as a result of having somewhat of an appreciation of the greatness of this man. But when there is no appreciation of the greatness of the person before whom you submit, this is submission on its own, pure submission. That is the idea of Hoid Shebahoid, Hoida'a Shebahoida'a. Submission within submission. Submission, total submission. This idea of Hoid, meaning this submission itself, is not as a result of the intellectual faculties of the soul, or even as a result of the emotional faculties of the soul. It's pure submission. As we say in the text of Moedim D'Rabbanan, that we say, the Moedim that we say when the Chazan says Moedim in Chazar Sashatz, in the repetition of the Amidah, when the Chazan says Moedim, we say Moedim D'Rabbanan. It's called Moedim D'Rabbanan. Why is it called Moedim D'Rabbanan? The Moedim of the rabbis, because in the Talmud there's a machlekes, there's a dispute what is the precise text that should be said. So the bottom line is we say we make a combination of all the opinions together. So that's why it's called the Moedim of the sages, of the rabbis. And another reason is because it was instituted by the rabbis rather than the Anshe Knesset Agdela, the men of the Holy Assembly who wrote the text of the davening in general. This was added as an addendum later on. Be that as it may, what do we say in Moedim D'Rabbanan? If you ever looked at the Taich, the definition of the text, Moedim Nachnu Loch, we submit to you, we thank you, we Sha'ato Shem Alkeinu K'Yaseinu, K'Basar Yitzreinu, it's gracious. Kein T'chayenu K'Yameinu, so you should give us life and you should give us existence. V'sesav Kol Yaseinu, you should gather all our exiles, L'chatzis Kachecha, to the Beis Mikdash. Why? Al She'anu Moedim Loch. Because we submit to you. That's what we say. Why should you do this? Because Al She'anu Moedim Loch, because we submit to you. What does that mean? Submission, pure submission. We just submit. So that's the idea of Haida'a Sheba This is the, as you said before, the pinnacle or the end, the very last level in Kedusha, in holiness. Shalzeh Amru Razal, because concerning this, our sages say there's a din. The Gemara says in Bava Kama that a person must bow at Moedim. A Yid must bow at Moedim. A Jew who doesn't bow at Moedim doesn't get up at the resurrection. Why? Because someone who doesn't bowing at Moedim is the most basic act of submission. Right? Bowing to Hashem. A person that doesn't bow to Hashem, it means that what's he lacking? He's lacking even the most basic level of submission to Hashem. Right? When a person doesn't have the idea of knowledge in godliness, if he knows at the very least that he must submit, he must thank, he must submit, then he has hope. Even if he doesn't have this knowledge, right? And he doesn't submit by inspiration of anything else. But he could affect himself, he could influence himself to submit simply because one needs to submit, without any knowledge, without any awareness, which is the significance of what? Of the bowing. Then he's at the very least, at the level of Ha'id, he still has hope. Somebody that does not bow at Moedim, which means, in other words, he's lacking even the most basic level of Hidah, the most basic level of submission. As the Talmud says, his spine turns into a snake. What's the idea of the snake, the Nachash? Nochash hakadmeni signifies sin. What's the word? The symbol, the greatest symbol of sin is the snake, who's the one that caused all the problems. So the person that doesn't bow his spine turns into a snake. It means that a person like this, who doesn't bow at Meidim, means he has no connection to Kedusha whatsoever. So the idea of Hoid Shebehoid is the very last level of Kedusha of holiness. What's the connection to Lag BaOmer and the connection to Keser? But this we will understand the connection of Lag BaOmer, the 33rd of the Omer, to Rab Shimon Bar Yochai. The Hinei, I think this is also a printing mistake. It should be probably Ha'avoida. Ha'avoida shel Rashbi rather than Ha'uvda. Ha'avoida shel Rashbi Hoisa. What was the task of Rashbi? What did the Rab Shimon Bar Yochai accomplish? Lekasher emek reimim emek tachas. His role was to connect the depths of the highest levels with the depths of the lowest levels. Hold that thought. I'll spell it out a little more, probably tomorrow. Maybe I don't think I'll make it today. But Lochem, therefore, in simple words, he took the very highest concepts of Torah, the most sublime ideas of Pnimius HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, and he revealed them to Yidden through the Zohar, right? V'lochem, ha'is galus de'emek reim ad l'sheir shoshi l'mayla mayla hoysa lag ba'emer she'usfiras ha'heit shebehoid. Basically, the very highest levels finds expression where, as we always know, and the very lowest. So therefore, Rashbi, whose role was to reveal the very deepest levels of the most lofty level, the most deepest ideas of the most lofty levels, spiritual levels. Therefore, this revelation, it says in the Zohar, it says over there in the Zohar, it describes the Rashbi's passing. On the day of his passing, he revealed the greatest secrets of the Torah that he ever did from his entire life. The greatest revelations took place on that day. He reached levels that he didn't reach throughout his life, and he revealed them. When did that take place? On Lag BaOmer. Why? Sfiras Hoid Shebehoid, which is in Sfiras it is the level of what? Hoid Shebehoid. Shezuya Madrega Yisr Tachtena Baveda, which is the very lowest level in a man's service to Hashem. Shebon Yishlemes Haveda the Birer Ikre Amidus, in which in this Sfira comes to conclusion the work, this job of refining the main aspects of the emotional faculties of the soul. For Oz Yechela, when a person reaches that level where he has refined the very lowest levels of the soul, of the emotional faculties of the soul, then there can be the opening of the channel, Lamshachas Vigili, to drawing down a revelation, the very highest sources from above and beyond, through which it reaches to each and every Jew the revelation of the most inner dimensions of the Torah. How do we open up this channel? Through the Avodas Hashem, serving Hashem, in a mode of Hoid Shebehoid, pure submission. What does that mean? Accepting the yoke of Hashem. Ula Shel Torah, the yoke of Torah commission, is one of the ilas that was explained earlier in the Sikha. V'hainu, she'ein mischashev hagbolos is manamokim, a person does not reckon with the limitations of time and space. Uklolos avidosi hilagamri shlei al pitam vadas. It means generally he approaches the service of Hashem beyond reason, beyond comprehension, no limits. V'lachein, that's the basis of his service of Hashem. V'lachein in the leizu b'vad she'abokim v'zman einon malimim mastiru alav. Therefore, time and space not only do not conceal and block and hinder him, on the contrary, even in time and in space, he can affect and he can bring about the idea of Usfartem Lochem, turning into a mitzvah, turning time into the most ultimate expression of Kedusha and of godliness. That's the idea of Sfiras Omer. I know we ran through this last section without elaborating. Please God, the mitzvah tomorrow, we'll go back a little and spell it out a little more.